Hey everybody, welcome. Coach here. How you doing? I hope January is clicking along perfectly for you guys. I'm going to talk today about those folks out there, and you know who you are, who love to improve the landscape they own, but oftentimes they kind of always fall short of their own expectations or vision of what that Saturday and Sunday efforts resulted in. Ah, yes, the weekend warrior approach to landscaping. I think it's going to be an interesting one, and I'm glad you're here. Let's get going. Hey, thanks for sticking with me. I hope you're a regular listener, and if you're not, hey, please consider hanging around every week. I do dispense a lot of good information for you. Hey, have you ever had the pleasure of being at the nursery or in a nursery department on a bright, sunny, comfortable April, May, or June morning, especially Saturday morning? Sometimes it can be an absolute madhouse, shoulder to shoulder, especially in the annuals department. Why is that? You walk around and carts are just brimming with all kinds of new baby bloomers and bags of soil and doodads from the end cap impulse buys and all kinds of stuff. That used to be my world many, many years ago. It really was. I have seen that scenario millions of times, especially as a young nurseryman when I was in my late teens and early 20s, and as a nursery manager, and now as a seasoned landscape designer and contractor. Yep, I have been at the nursery on those times and have seen I've almost seen people fight over the last boxwood type of thing. I have seen people find the breakout spring specials and come in there with pickup trucks, and they come in with multiple carts, that kind of stuff, and they come in and load up and head on out, all with very good intentions. And spring kind of has that effect on us all, don't you think? It is a season of rebirth and resurgence and renewal, etc. Perfectly natural, right? But you know something? I have also seen the downside of these unplanned financial splurges where intentions are really good, but results always fall short of the buyer's visions and expectations when they're not met. Maybe they tuned into HGTV, or they saw something on Etsy or Pinterest or Facebook, and ooh and ah kind of thing. I want that for my place. And yet they go out and they do this with, again, all the best intentions that they can muster. And then a month later, they look out there and they go, I just thought it would look better than that. Does any of this sound familiar to you over the years? Let me say one thing here. Let me make something very crystal clear. Weekend warriors are not a subspecies of the human race. They really are not. Not someone less than someone else. Not in any way, shape, or form. It is because of these fine folks, literally these fine folks, that nurseries and box store garden departments are bursting at the seams with beautiful inventory every spring and into summer. That is who they market to, 100%. Those retail centers, for the most part, do not cater to contractors. They don't. Yes, we do go in and we sometimes get stuff because of inventory availability at the wholesale grower or whatever, but we are generally not there on a Saturday morning. We're going to be there on a weekday when it's our work week if we have to be there. So basically, a warm 65 or 70 degree Saturday morning in late April with the nursery just brimming to the breaking point, the bursting point with brand new plant material. It's like leading the lambs to the plant buying slaughter. Because for the most part, if you kind of have a brown thumb and you haven't educated yourself enough to get to that green thumb level, sometimes you're literally throwing money down a rat hole. Because if you don't do it right and you don't get that success, that wow factor that you were really hoping to get, it's kind of disheartening. It really is, to those people that are doing it. And oftentimes, after a season or two, many just give up. I would really like to make a sincere and conscientious plea before this 2025 spring erupts, if you happen to fall just a little bit into this category. In this day and age, I think, compared to when I was first in the business, I think plants are way too expensive to go at a weekend project just haphazardly. I think it's ill-informed and ill-advised and a waste of money, especially for a newbie. I'm talking brand newbie. I'm not talking about you guys that you're gonna plant your marigolds or petunias or pansies or vegetable garden in the same place that you've done the last 20 years and you know how exactly to garner exactly what you want as far as look and improvement in your yard. You've done it. You're not a newbie, okay? If you have a yearning to create a landscape improvement, and it is more than just an impulse buy on a Saturday morning, take a beat for just a second. Just exhale and think it through and maybe garner some advice and suggestions beforehand if you know this is not your wheelhouse just yet. You know, there's nothing more powerful than knowledge. And if you can garner just a little bit, just a wee bit, it makes the whole experience, you know, the whole gardening and re-landscaping or adding to it experience so much more enjoyable. It really does. Honestly, I cannot tell you the countless number of folks I have heard this particular, shall we say, statement. I have this spot in my yard. Or let's back that up. Sir, can you help me? Sure. I have this spot in my yard and I have tried 10 bazillion things there and nothing ever seems to turn out right. Can you help me just a little bit? Now, again, I go back to my old saying of if I had $100 bill for every time, you know, and I kind of had a canned response. Well, first of all, let me tell you thank you for coming in and asking the question, because by the time we get done, maybe we can make sure that whatever this area is now going to be successful for you rather than unsuccessful. So kudos for those who actually ask those questions. And I encourage you to break out of your shy little shell if you are on the fence as far as what exactly to do. You know, ask when you go in. Now I'm going to leave you with a little caveat on that part of this whole show. And that is, make sure you're asking somebody who knows. And no disrespect intended. No disrespect intended at all. But if you're going up and asking somebody who is slinging pansies at a box store or even W-Mart, then you may not be getting a totally educated person on the success of your project or anybody else's project. They are not hired there because they know a lot about the plant material that maybe they're charged of putting out on the shelf or watering. They're there because that's the department they happen to be placed in, maybe even just for that day. Now, generally, there is somebody in the mix at a box store. There's generally a department manager or so. I know that at our local big box store, there is a lady. She is obviously the department head of the nursery area. I have my reservations as far as how the nursery is run and stocked, because I don't believe anybody should be bringing in plant material that doesn't belong in the zone of where that store is at. I would just reject everything. And I know that sometimes, having been in the business, especially if you're a chain store. Oftentimes there are bulk purchases that district or regional managers make, and they get with a salesperson from a wholesale grower and they say, okay, I want 50 flats of these to go into each of my stores, or I want 100 of these plants to go into each of my stores. And then he lets the manager know what's coming. With that being said, then the store manager, the store nursery manager, gets this stuff like what we saw. We saw a teddy bear magnolia in zone 4 nursery this spring, knowing full well that that thing was going to eat it. And sure enough, 4 weeks later, first cold night was there, it was in the dumpster in the back of the nursery area. So make sure you get somebody who knows what they're talking about. And oftentimes you may need to seek out a reputable mom and pop type of nursery, someone who really is experienced and knowledgeable. So what would I do with somebody that's a noob and a weekend warrior? I would generally set them up for success. In this day and age, it's super easy for somebody to snap a few photos, take a couple of notes, or on a piece of binder paper, sketch something out of the area, and then sit down with a reputable, educated nurseryman and say, what do you think can work here? And they're going to tell you, well, you can try A, B, C, D, and E, and make sure you amend it with 1, 2, 3, and 4, and make sure that you dig the holes and do this and do that, and you set that customer up for success. And as a nursery manager, myself and my staff, our sole intent when it came to customer contact was making sure they went out the door with all the knowledge and materials in hand to be successful. Because what generally happens? They get home. They have not contacted us. They just come in and go, oh, that's pretty. Oh, that's pretty. Oh, those smell good, etc. They get home, they shove it in the ground, and it just does not thrive. It doesn't grow very well, or worse, something dies. And that person turns around and goes, I went to Coach's nursery, and I've been there half a dozen times. And every time I bring something home and I put in the ground, it dies within a month. Their plants are crap. It's not the plants, it's the planter and how it was approached. And this is where weekend warriors sometimes fall by the wayside, because you haven't thought the little project or the medium project or the large project out. You just kind of willy-nilly'd it, and you got willy-nilly results. So what I used to do, and so did my staff, is that we would say, okay, sun or shade? Full sun. How's the soil? Hard as a rock. Let's address the soil first. Here's some products that you might want to try to really condition the soil up so that everything works again. Okay, now, what's your favorite colors? What colors do you want to use? Whatever that is, show them 1 to 5 selections that would work. If they were annuals, fine. If they were perennials, fine. If they were plants and shrubs or trees, whatever it was, we would take them in the top of a funnel, a sales funnel, and we would guide them down to the bottom of the funnel. And the bottom of the funnel was where they had the plants that they wanted, with the encouragement and education to get it in the ground successfully, and the care and maintenance associated with it, so it would continue to thrive from the time they put it in the ground until whenever. If it was plants or trees, years. If it was perennials, many years. And if it was annuals, for the entire season. There's just nothing worse than bad advertisement. And generally that bad advertisement always resided in someone who had a horrible experience. I'm never buying plants at Walmart ever again. Everything I get there dies. That is a real broad brush statement, because many times the plants that go to Walmart are the same plants that go to the mom and pop store down the street. Comes from the same grower, same plants. Now, how they were cared for once they hit the retail shelf is a whole nother kettle of fish. I mean, we've all walked through the garden center at Walmart and we've seen half a nursery dying on the vine because of no water. If that ever happened in a nursery I was running, someone would get written up. They would. And they would get educated or they'd be shown the door because there was just way too many dollars invested in that nursery just to have stuff die on the table before it even gets sold. Plain and simple. We are professionals in the industry. We're going to treat the plants professionally and make sure that everything looks snappy on that Saturday morning or the other 6 days of the week. So when they walk in, they go, this is how plants are supposed to look. So my suggestion, weekend warriors, listen up. If you take just a couple extra steps, you will end up with so much more success and a much nicer outcome. Here's just a couple. Now the first one's a doozy, okay? Number one, determine ahead of time what the scope of the project is and what may be needed. You might not actually know yet, but what may be needed, and make a note of it. Do a small little sketch of something, whatever it is. You know, if it's a big container, okay, and you're going to put multiple things in it, okay. You don't have to draw it out on a container, but you might want to make some notes on the side saying, I'd like to have some purple or some white or some orange or some yellow or whatever. Where the project is on your property. Does this involve landscaping the back fence finally? Then how wide of the property in feet does the back fence take up? How deep of bed are you going to create? How long of bed and how wide is going to really boil down to what plants you use and what is your end goal for that bed. Are you looking for privacy? Are you looking for wow factor of color? Are you looking for a nice tiered bed that's going to have to be a little deeper, but you have tall and solid in the back and step down shrubberies in the front that have periodic color and then perennials and annuals? You go in the whole 6 yards? Or are you just looking at a green privacy screen? Whatever it is, it's going to trigger someone you ask about, hey, you might want to think about these in the back, these in the middle, these are some great perennials, and you might want to fluff it up for a little while with fillers of these annuals. And then what kind of soil do you have? What do you have? Hard as a rock, heavy adobe clay? Do you have sandy loam? You lucky sons. I so miss my sandy loam from where I used to live, really do. Do not have that now at all. Talk about soil conditioning. I can't even think about putting something in the ground here without having half a bag of soil conditioner. And for a gallon can plant, I'm digging a 5-gallon hole and mixing everything up. That's how I get success out of the plant material. So gathering all this information, then you have to stop and think a second. Can I do this in a day or a day and a half for the weekend? Or is this going to take just a little bit more time so I don't get rushed and it's done at a just below the professional level, but it's going to look damn good? Does the back fence have lawn going up to it right now? And that stuff has to be killed off and removed. Do weeds need to get pulled, etc.? So it's a complete thought process from the get-go. And then step 2, knowing what plants that will work there, which that education may come when you get to the nursery, which ones of those plants are going to look good, give you the end result that you want, and actually thrive. Is it a full sun area? Well, we're not going to go get shady plants then, are we? Is it a wet area? And the plants that are really going to work there kind of along the dry side of nature. Do you need to have additional irrigation? Or are you going to try to wing it and have your lawn irrigation that covered the back fence also water this stuff? That can work. That can work. It's not the best way to do it, but as long as you drag a hose for a little while and get them established, then yeah, sometimes your lawn irrigation will take care of it. It just results in kind of a shallow rooted planting area, that's all. All of this, those 2 steps, really, if you boil it down to it, I mean, it can be answered mentally in just a couple of minutes. But sometimes, literally, maybe take an hour and sift through the details in order to make the end result attractive, successful, and especially successful for the long term. You just don't want to throw hundreds of dollars at a project only for them to just sit there year after year because they're just not happy, because they're the wrong plants in the right place, but for the wrong reasons. So if you are planning up pots of annuals or a new strawberry pot for the season, this doesn't really apply to you. But here it comes again. Even then, you can stretch your mind just a little bit, just a wee bit further, and find out that you can get annuals that bloom out in 6 to 8 weeks and you're done. Or you can get annuals that may have some of those real fast starter, fast bloomers, but you've also complemented them with other annuals that are going to come on a little bit later and last a lot longer. And then your bloom dollar has stretched out over an entire season. If you have a strawberry pot or strawberry bed or whatever, you can get strawberries, but you can also get strawberries that some are bearing earlier in the season, some are mid bloomers and bearers, and other ones are late bearers. So you have strawberries instead of 2.5 months, you have them for 7 months, depending on where you live. For me, it's about 5 at the most, maybe 4.5, depending on year to year. But you can stretch your strawberry dollar twice as far. That also comes from a little bit of research on your own, but you can also ask when you get to the nursery, plain and simple. Landscaping projects, small, medium, and large, can often kind of be equated to a painting project. Say you're repainting the kitchen or the bathroom. It's all in the prep. It really is. It's all in the prep, both physical and mental. You're not going to go painting the bathroom one morning because you walked by an end cap of paint at a box store. Oh, I think I'm going to paint today. And you don't have taping off. You don't have a stir stick. You don't sure which color it is. You're going to not cover up the toilet or the shower or anything else. You're just going to have at it. Most people don't approach a painting project that way. And I strongly urge that you don't approach a landscape project this way either, small or large. And if you do think it just a little bit, it really flattens that difficulty curve tremendously. And it makes that process a heck of a lot more enjoyable. If you dumb it down or eliminate the frustration level and actually make it fun, especially if you have kids involved, even if you're not into landscape improvement that much anyway, but guys, gals, depending, so-and-so told you we really need to do something with this yard this year. Any of that sound familiar? And I have been at many a person's house when I've heard that. Just like painting or woodworking or an irrigation system or a lighting system or anything that's a project, you need to take that extra step and not just weekend warrior it out there hoping for the best. Rather, assure your own success, and you don't have those multiple trips back to the store to get something you forgot. You can ask, hey, you've set me up here with $300 worth of plants. Thank you very much. What else do I need here before I leave? Because maybe you, like us, you live 45 miles away from the store. What else do I need before I go that is going to assure me that this stuff is going to be good? And they're going to turn around and say, you got a hose? Yes. You have fertilizer? No. How about some starter fertilizer? Okay, show me the starter fertilizer. What about the tools to get it in the ground? Do you have a good digging shovel? Do you have whatever? Well, I've got this one that I got from my grandpa. Might you need a new digging shovel? Show me what you got. People may say no to the additional cost, but that means that it's on you, not on the professional that was offering you a key to success. I'll tell you, and this is Never once in my adult life have I ever just bought something at the nursery on a whim without some idea that I needed it, number one, knew where it was going to go, number two, and what else I needed to get to put it in the ground or a container and be successful. I am not a rich person by any stretch of the imagination, but this is just how I approached anything that had to do with my landscape. Yeah, okay, maybe I'm a little weird that way. I know if you ask my wife, she would probably agree with that. As another suggestion, if you do fall victim to the impulse buy that you just can't live without, and you get it home, you don't know what the hell you're gonna do with it, but just leave it for a day or so, maybe even a week, because you bought it on an impulse. And don't just go randomly plopping it somewhere in the ground. You might end up the next morning looking out, seeing it on the patio and going, why in the Sam heck did I get that thing? I don't. And maybe you can take it back, and get something that you might really need, even though it's beautiful. But it's that magnolia up in zone 4, and chances are maybe it's not going to work for you where you're at, but it just happened to come in the nursery. So think it out and don't fall victim to the impulse when it comes to it. Weekend warriors, they spend millions and millions and millions of dollars collectively around the world every year on plants that end up struggling, dying, just sitting there, and these hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of people just are left with a sense of frustration and failure. That's where the brown thumb theory comes from. That's where people giggle at the cocktail party going, ha, plants, good God, I have a brown thumb. I can't get anything to grow. That is simply not true. People who are like that just have not educated themselves and been shown how to do things correctly. I guarantee you they're probably a success with their own industry. They know exactly how to do somebody's taxes or do open heart surgery or sell a car, but maybe putting pansies in the ground, it just gets crown rot in 2 seconds and it's done. Just a little thought. When you're dealing with something that is actually alive, which plants are living things, you need to know the care and the preparedness needed in order to maintain the health of that living thing. Am I right? Take, for instance, your kids or your pets. They're prime examples of doing what is best for them. The right clothes, the right food, the right hygiene, the right toys, the right leash, everything, the right training, whatever it is, that for a fact, don't you? But when it comes to those suckers that live out in the ground or in the raised beds or in the containers, they always seem to take a back seat. They're just plants. Who cares? Why then would you turn around and spend hundreds of dollars every year or every other year on those plant material and hope for the best, rather than finding out exactly what those things need to thrive and grow and give back to you what you originally thought they were going to do? So buying full sun plants and placing them in a shady location, or vice versa, ain't thinking it through really deep. It really isn't. And yet, countless numbers of times, I've seen people bring stuff into the nursery and go, look, I bought this 2 months ago and look at this plant. This plant is crap. And yet I would look at it and I'd say, well, why did you bury it so deep that the dirt went all the way up to the first branches here? What do you mean? Well, this is called the crown of a plant. And when you plant it in the ground, you need to plant it this way and this way and this way, so that as it settles flat, water flows away from this part of the plant, and you don't get crown rot, which is why this plant died. Well, why didn't you tell me about that when I bought it? Did you ask anybody? Well, no, it was on the sales table, it was 50% off, and I got it and I went home and I planted it. See what I mean? Bad advertisement. So you take them, hold them by their hand, show them exactly how to plant the next one, and suddenly they come in and they are master gardeners. Master gardeners from the get-go. Oh yeah, all the things I buy from that place now, yeah. I had one bad experience, but the guy really showed me what went wrong, and now that doesn't happen anymore. So, all in all, weekend warriors can have a great landscape success and a much higher ratio of pleasant gardening experiences if they add just a smidge more thought before pulling that Saturday morning trigger. Just a few more thinks will really help go a long ways. For me, personally, there is nothing more exciting than hitting a springtime nursery, albeit for me, on weekdays, not weekends, usually later in the week, before the weekend, when I know full well most of all the brand new restock has reached the shelves, and yet the weekend tribes haven't come in there and gobbled everything all up. Ask me how I know this, huh? Ask me. So when those nurseries are bursting at the seams of inventory, basically maxed out, there's no other place to put anything, strolling through these environments to me, making selections maybe, studying tags of things I've yet to know about, and seeing the sights and the smells that is the nursery business. And yes, there is a smell to a plant nursery. Guarantee you there is one. For me, I'm giving it 3 months, a solid 3, maybe even 3.5 months before I will be able to enjoy that time of year again. And oh baby, am I so much looking forward to it, because right now I have a white landscape. Everywhere I look, I have nothing but conifers and white snow everywhere. I can't wait for springtime. This one is much harder than last year. Last year at Brook and Pond, I had plenty to do during the winter. I had a garage to redo, I had a forest to clean up and burn and all kinds of stuff. Yes, you can actually burn stuff in the forest here in northern Maine, because if you're smart, you create big burn areas and you can clean up your property really easy. But for you down in SoCal, in Florida, heck, your guys' spring is within the next 30 days. You're gonna start seeing nurseries filling up again already. You lucky sons of a guns, plain and simple. So that's what I have for you. Weekend warriors, unite, but unite with a little bit of strategic approach to it, and I will guarantee that it is going to be a heck of a better spring for you. Containers, think it out. Putting it in the ground, think it out just a little bit. Talk with your significant. Do all the things that I generally suggest, and your gardening experience will 10x itself, and you won't have to sit around come July going, God, what another waste of money I did on that bed. You won't have to say that anymore. That's what I have for you guys. Hey, as always, to your landscape success, until next week, I'll say goodbye for now.
Hey crew, don't forget to head over to the website, youryardcoach.com, where you will find DIY checklists, an ebook, and even a digital course for the DIY homeowner. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. We'll see you next week.